Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. My pronouns are he, him.
My name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living. My pronouns are he, him.
All right. Well, this week we've got a spicy show. I just wanted to say that because we're talking about the movie Flamin' Hot. I'm just being so silly. But yes, but before we get to our spicy show, if you're a member of our Patreon, and if you're not, consider joining, go check out our bonus episode where we talked about James Wan's 2013 film, The Conjuring. And we had a great conversation about that. And we talked about it because it is that film's 10-year anniversary, which is just wild. Time she is a flying. Cast your rosebuds while you may. Anyway, I'm glad you appreciate that, Dave. Thank you.
It's really tickled me. I don't know why.
I love it. I love it. As I thought it might. So this week we are talking about, yes, Flamin' Hot, and we are also talking about Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. And that is what we are going to kick this week's show off with. Before we do that, though, I'm going to do it at the end of the show, too. But I just wanted to give a huge thank you to our sponsor, patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
Okay, so now on to the show. Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves is a fantasy action heist. It is directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly, with a screenplay by both of them, along with Michael Gillio, and a story by Chris McKay and Gillio. And the cast includes Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Roger Jean Page, Justice Smith, Sophia Lillis, Chloe Coleman, Daisy Head, and Hugh Grant. And here is your synopsis from the press release. A group of thieves unwittingly steal a relic for the evil Red Wizard who uses it to create an army of the undead. Seeking redemption, the unlikely band of adventurers set out to stop the Red Wizard and save the world. That's mostly true, which I think is interesting because that is from the press release itself. But I would also argue that it's also Chris Pine trying to get back in connection with his daughter, because they have been estranged due to a time spell, and then he and Michelle Rodriguez getting thrown in prison, having to serve a term of 2 years, and then their friend Hugh Grant was taking care of her. But yes, so if you follow D&D, or even if you don't need to follow D&D to follow this movie, but it very much does follow D&D rules, which I think is very cool. And yeah, it's basically a band of adventurers, and they're trying to, get the Kira, Chris Pine's daughter, and they're going through the land, adventuring and fighting dragons, and breaking into breaking into wagons and breaking into castles and surviving gladiatorial games. But you have Chris Pine, who plays a bard. You have Michelle Rodriguez, who plays a barbarian warrior. You have Roger Jean Page, who is a paladin, basically a religious knight. You have Sophia Lillis, who is a tiefling, druid, and because of that, she's a shapeshifter. You have Justice Smith, who is a mage and means he casts spells. And you have Hugh Grant, who is a rogue, basically a criminal, and he is posing as the leader of this, the lord of this castle, and he's taking care of Kira, who is Chris Pine's daughter. And Chris Pine wants this relic because he wants to resurrect his lost love, the mother of his daughter. But Hugh Grant has lied and told Kira that it's because he is just greedy, which is not the case. So anyway, that is the bare bones. That is the overarching story, but I'm sure we'll dig into more of the plot later. Guys, what did you think? Evan, you go first.
Sure. Sounds good. I really enjoyed this. I am by no means super well versed in D&D. I've played a little bit with my friends, and this is just a really fun romp on its own, even if I didn't know anything about D&D, but knowing a little bit about D&D makes it even more fun. Just hearing references to places and seeing them cast spells and do things that are are possible in the game. And I think this is just a really fun romp. A lot of that has to do with, I think, really good casting. But it's also, people writing and directing it who clearly care about D&D, have played D&D. I think there's something really kind of hilarious that one of the writer-directors played Sam Weir in Freaks and Geeks. And,
Yes, he did.
and I had a blast with this. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was well cast. I think the characters had a great rapport. I really like Hugh Grant playing a villain. He's basically twirling a mustache without a mustache in this movie.
Indeed.
And Chris Pine is also just perfectly cast in this. It's like people watched him in Into the Woods and thought, all right, let's see him do that and let's have him sing, but let's drop him in D&D, make him the main character, and just let him run with just being absolutely ridiculous.
Listen, Evan, he was far and away the best part of Into the Woods, so I'm so delighted that he is playing a part in this. I could not agree with you more.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
I wish that somebody had made, the joke, there's loot that they're trying to steal, and he plays the lute, which is an instrument, and nobody ever got confused about what they were talking about. I don't think they ever called stuff they were stealing loot, though. I don't know. I liked this a lot. I think one of the things. Well, going into this, I was kind of like, I played. This will actually probably surprise you. I played a shitload of D&D between 5th and 7th grade. Just we were so into it, we wrote our own, games and shit like that, which I know lots of people do. But
yeah, I was gonna say, actually, every campaign I've ever done, that's what you do.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's a little bit ambitious for 10-year-olds, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, it's also a little different now because you can play other campaigns. You don't have to necessarily write your own. Yeah, so you're right.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. You were hardcore.
The thing that I was kind of scratching my head about before I watched this was I had heard this was also a comedy, which it is, and it is funny. And I was like, how are they going to pull this off? D&D's not funny. And then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. D&D in and of itself isn't funny, but you sitting around with 5 or 6 of your friends is fucking hilarious because you're all like, you can't do that, dude. Or you do something some cool spell that you need to roll an 18 to have it work, and then you do, and you're like, ha ha. It's and that kind of won me over because I was just thinking, this is the spirit of a bunch of people just sitting in their, kitchen or their dining room while their parents are like, shut up in the other room. And, just being silly. And I don't know, it kind of dragged toward the end when they were, because they got through the, I don't even remember what it's called when all the the columns are jumping up and they're going through that maze and all the things are going, everywhere. And then they get done with that and there's still another 30 minutes to go. I was like, what the fuck is going to go? What's going on with this movie? And then there's a whole big battle with the, red sorceress or whatever she is. I don't know. The bald, evil conjurer person. We just watched The Conjuring. I shouldn't say conjurer. That word is on my mind.
Sophina, the
Sophina.
Thayan wizard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Or Thayan. I don't know if it was a wizard, but
anyway, I just had a lot of fun with it.
It's the Red Priestess of Thane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe Red Wizard of Thane. Anyway.
I also really liked seeing, I feel like a lot of the time when you see Michelle Rodriguez these days, and this is not her fault, it's because I don't know why these movies do this, but the Fast movies take themselves so seriously, and Letty is the most, she's just, we can't involve Brian, we told him we would, and so she's always doing that, and in this she's just chill, and she's cracking jokes, and she's fucking people up, and it's just all a fun time, and it's I miss this Michelle Rodriguez, where has she been? And Chris Pine is perfect for this role. I think if there's any weak link, and I think you both may disagree with me, I think Sophia Lillis is kind of bland, kind of boring. Doesn't really pull it off. But
I agree with that actually. I mean, I don't know if I'd say boring, but she's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it might be the
She's
character. Fine. She's supposed to be very earnest, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe that's it.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel and they mention this with lines about tieflings and their distrust of humans, and I feel like it's paid more lip service than actual character building that into the character.
Yeah, it's just that all of the characters seem to have some. I'm going to use the word oomph behind them. like the terrible wizard who's, gets his confidence finally. I don't know what his fucking name is.
Simon.
But his whole thing is that he doesn't have confidence, and that's why he can't perform the kinds of spells he needs to, et cetera, et cetera. And then he finally does get the confidence, and it's like it's a running gag throughout the
Right.
whole movie. Whereas her character's just kind of like the earnest one. What fun is that? So, and I just don't. I think it's a combination of the character's not great, and I just don't think that she's very good at at playing a kind of a bland character, because she's great in it. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it's a very
different role.
kind of film and role. Yes, totally. But I agree with you. But I think Roger Jean Page, who is so charismatic and so lovely, like I adored him on Bridgerton season 1, and I think he's great here, and he's just so lovely. He's also playing an extremely earnest character, and he's got a lot of panache and a lot of charisma. So I hear you, but I also think. No, I think, maybe she's a type of actor who needs more, like kind of more meat to the role. Like
maybe
she needs it more fleshed out or something. But but no, it is very kind of, it's easy to forget her.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of humor just baked into his role.
Very true.
Which there is not in hers. So.
No, and I'm okay with that because you need, I would argue you need somebody who's like the straight person, humor wise.
Yeah.
But but no, I still think there's, I agree with you. I mean, if you had to pick one, which you don't necessarily, but but I hear you.
And it's always fun to see Hugh Grant. I hesitate to say playing against type because he hasn't really played the foppish like stutterer since the late 90s. But to see him playing just an actual rogue is just a delight. you know? So,
he needs to play more villains. I love it.
Heel.
Yeah.
Yep. He's a real cad.
Exactly.
God, I love it. Yeah. No, I'm so glad you guys both love this because I was very, very excited to see this because I also was a huge D&D player many moons ago. And so I was super pumped, and I feel like things don't often get D&D right. And so, but I'd heard such great things, and I'm like, well, okay, we'll see. And I was very optimistic. And this was an absolute delight. I found this charming. I found this delightful. I found it so much fun. What I really like is that you don't have to be a D&D player to enjoy it, but you absolutely, I think, like you were saying, Evan, like I was so excited to see a displacer beast. Like I was like so excited. I was like, yeah. And I was hoping like we'd see a beholder, but we didn't, but that's okay. But like we saw rust monsters like in the foreground in a scene, which I was like, that's cool. So like there's these little touches, and they're talking about Baldur's Gate, and which is so great, and there's and they're going to these places like that you've seen and you've heard of, and I really like that. I really appreciated it. There's just nice touches. I do have to say though, I am curious because I know Joe Manganiello is a huge D&D nerd and does like campaigns in his like massive basement, and he wrote a script for a D&D film. And I'm not sure, though, if that script is what eventually became this. I don't think so, because I would assume he would get credit. But he talked about it, that he wrote a script and don't know what happened to it. It didn't seem to come to fruition. But I'm curious because he's like such a hardcore D&D player, but and like is a DM, like and runs campaigns all the time. Anyway, but I did like this. My one criticism of this, because I think this is so much fun. Love it. I love the camaraderie between everyone. My one real frustration is that the two queer actors in this film are not playing queer characters, and D&D lends itself so easily to be queer, like so easily, and it just was really annoying to me that both of the characters who are queer, or both the actors who are queer in real life, Michelle Rodriguez and Justice Smith, both were arguably not playing queer characters here.
Mm-hmm.
It was frustrating for me.
Yeah,
fair point. I did appreciate the scene, though, with halfling Bradley Cooper playing her ex-husband.
Yes! I love Bradley Cooper!
By the way, I can't believe how committed he was to that part for 2.5 minutes.
Listen.
I mean, he had developed an entire character and backstory for that whole thing. And he just nailed it.
Bradley Cooper is amazing.
He's great.
People need to get on the Bradley Cooper train because choo choo, he's great.
Yeah.
He is great. Yeah, he's great in this little part. And they did do a really good job of kind of hiding that cameo. I remember hearing about it a little bit after the movie came out, just because I'd come across news stories and spoilers and things like that. But I had forgotten. It had been long enough since I had seen those stories that I'd forgotten about it. So when he showed up in the movie, I was genuinely surprised.
I didn't know about it, so I was very surprised and delighted. I was like, yay, Bradley Cooper, I love you.
Yeah.
He's such a good actor.
Yeah. What I also liked about that scene is that his second wife is even taller than Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah.
He clearly has a type. She clearly has a type because at the end, when she's getting like her medal or whatever, she's like giving a halfling guy, some googly eyes. So
yeah.
Yeah, that was very funny. I thought the action set pieces in this were really impressive.
Yes.
Like the when Simon is fucking up his magic and everyone's flying into the ceiling, I thought that scene was really well done. The way they played with perspective and shifted perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I thought when the tiefling Doric, when she was shape-shifting into different animals and fleeing the castle, I thought that was a breakneck pace chase. And the when they were using the painting to cast the portal and then using the portal to get into the wagon, I thought that was all just so exciting and fascinating to watch.
Very clever. Yeah. And I agree with you, Evan. I really love her escape scene where she's shape-shifting into animals. And it really reminded me of Disney's Sword in the Stone and the shapeshift. If you've ever seen Sword in the Stone.
I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah, I love that film. And yeah, there's a shape-shifting animal duel where they're shape-shifting and chasing. So anyway, it reminded me of that in a great way. So yeah, I agree with you. And that painting, the painting portal was really clever. I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was just a fun time.
Yeah, it's just a good romp. I mean, it's just supposed to be a fun action movie, and that's exactly what it is, So, I mean, a huge, big budget action movie. But, I mean, it sets out to be a hoot, and it is, and that's great. I wish more movies that were huge budget, like big fucking action things, were good. So many of them aren't,
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because sometimes I think when you try to appeal to a broad base, it works against you, and you end up having a really mediocre piece of art. But I think here it actually kind of worked. Like the fact that you can access it as a hardcore D&D nerd, or someone who kind of casually played, or you can access it as someone who's never played and doesn't know anything about it. And surprisingly, it actually worked quite well because I think it lives up to the spirit of D&D and fantasy, which is nice.
Yeah, I think there's also really smart casting in it too. So that even if you're the kind of person who's not necessarily into D&D, you might be like, oh, Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Hugh Grant. Oh, that sounds fun. By the way, my favorite scene was the graveyard scene. That fucking had me laughing my ass off.
That was so funny. But then also when they left that last guy and didn't ask, I was sad too. I was like, that's fucking cruel. But it was a funny montage of them digging up corpses, asking them 5 questions
I
to
just
find
love
out
that
where the helm went.
I love that the first corpse answered questions that weren't directed at him. I was just like, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And he's like, does that count? And the guy's like, yes. The goes back, dies again. Yeah. And that guy was still there in the mid-credit scene. It's very sad.
Oh, see, I didn't watch the mid-credit scene.
Yeah, he's still there.
He was still there. He was like, guys, hello?
Can somebody ask me a question? It's like, oh, poor guy.
He can't get up out of the grave and go wander around, hang out. See what's been going on for the last 100 years? I don't know. I mean, I guess if you look like that, it might be hard to have people not like scream and run away in terror, but...
Maybe, but that is a good question. Like, what are the parameters of that spell? And speaking of, actually, one of the things I really liked is in one of the chase scenes where Justice Smith is trying to cast a spell, and the guy, the guard that he's fighting, like covers his mouth so then he can't cast the spell. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what happens. You need to be able to speak in order to cast spells and to move your hands. Like you need to have both mobility physically and to be able to speak. So anyway, it's a cute little touch that I was like, I like that.
Yeah. I was watching some short documentary with, I can't remember, the no confidence wizard.
Simon, Justice
Simon,
Smith, yes.
that he had thought, well, if you're casting spells, you move your hands, and he wanted to have a different hand movement for each thing he did. And all I could think about was the special effects artists who were like, God damn, this guy and his 14 hand movements. But that's neither here nor there.
That is amazing because I often think about the hand movements that Elizabeth Olsen does when she's playing Wanda in the Marvel movies, and also Catherine Hahn in WandaVision. She's doing a lot of hand movements too, and they both talked about hand choreography. And I love that he's doing that too, but he's taking it to like another level, like incorporating sign language and having individual, like it's amazing. But you're right, the VFX team are probably pissed.
Yeah, probably several meetings beforehand. Like, are you sure you need to do a different move for all of them? So we've only got like $1.5 million for this whole thing. So, I mean, more than that. I meant for his character.
Right. Yeah, not for the whole thing. Did you guys have any other thoughts?
No, I'm sad about that guy still being alive though during the mid-credit scene. I got to go watch that.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, this made me want to go play D&D again. So
Yeah.
definitely was, if that was one of its goals, it accomplished it.
I mean, yeah, I've got dice ready. Let's do it. Let's play. Let's do a spoiler piece campaign. Yes, Dave.
I was going to say, to me, it's weird to not see TSR's Dungeons and Dragons anymore. It's been so long since I played D&D that it's not TSR anymore.
It's not.
Sad.
No, I know.
No.
I know. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because when I heard tiefling, I'm like, what the fuck is a tiefling? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, that was long after I stopped playing that came out. But yeah. The other thing I wanted to say was that this is super fun, but I actually got a little misty-eyed. It was a little dusty in the room when Michelle Rodriguez, met her demise and then gets, resurrected. So
yeah,
it was very sweet.
I was not so misty-eyed because I knew that, once you see that she's got that spear in her chest, it's like, well, now he's going to have to use the spell on her. So she'll only be dead for like 30 seconds. And then she was,
Right.
No, that's not why I was misty-eyed. That was part of the reason. The other reason when I was like, oh, he's not going to be able to bring his dead wife back.
Yeah.
Which is sad, but his daughter, it's sad for him, but his daughter never knew her.
Yes,
He only knew Michelle Rodriguez. She only knew Michelle Rodriguez as her, mother figure, I guess.
No, and that's what was so sweet. I was like, oh, he's doing the ultimate sacrifice. He's sacrificing what he wants for his daughter and for his best friend. Like, it just was so nice. It was it was lovely.
It was a sweet moment.
It is. It was. And I'm a sucker for sweet moments and kind of like silly films or just really sweet moments in anything. So.
Well, it was also, they earned it too. So it wasn't just like, okay, I'll fucking save Michelle Rodriguez. It was, it was a real thing.
And what I also love, and we've talked about this on the show before, is I cannot stand when you have a man and a woman and a film is trying to force them into some kind of romantic situation. And I love that they are so not romantic, but they are best friends. They are forming a family, or they are a family. And I really love that. And then, there's a bartender who's like, oh, what would you like, husband and wife? And they're like, ew, no. I really appreciate that they have a completely platonic relationship, and it's just a very lovely, supportive family. And it's great. I love it.
Yeah, they also play with that trope too. The trope of, it's like, ew, no, we're not going to get together. And then, of course, they get together at the end. But in this movie, they don't get together. So it's like they even turn the trope on its head.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yay.
I agree. Any other final thoughts?
Nah.
I really liked the part where they created the facsimile of Chris Pine to do the distraction, and then he just started getting all weird and warped, and it just reminded me of the scene from Total Recall, the 2 weeks, and then
oh yeah,
it's a great scene. Great scene. I know. It was like he looked like he was melting and becoming a balloon. It was
Right.
like,
it was so bizarre and disturbing.
was.
Like visually disturbing.
Yes. I know. I'm going to have nightmares about that scene. But it was great. All right. Well, let's talk about Flamin' Hot. Let me just do. Okay. Flaming Hot is a biographical, sort of, comedy drama directed by Eva Longoria with a screenplay by Louis Colick and Linda Yvette Chavez. And the cast includes Jesse Garcia, Annie Gonzalez, Dennis Haysbert, Emilio Rivera, Tony Shalhoub, Matt Walsh, Bobby Soto, Jimmy Gonzalez, and Bryce Gonzalez. And here is the synopsis from the press release. The inspiring true story of Richard Montañez, the Frito-Lay janitor who channeled his Mexican-American heritage and upbringing to turn the iconic Flamin' Hot Cheetos into a snack that disrupted the food industry and became a global pop culture phenomenon.
I take lots of issues with that description, but
and that's the official one too.
Right.
So.
I think the one I'm going to take the most issue with though is disrupted. It didn't disrupt anything. It just became a thing. You know, like everybody, and it's like, oh, more money to be made because here's this section of the market we didn't know. That's not a disruption. That's a fucking find. Anyway.
I mean, yes, I guess you could argue it's a disruption in the sense. I think it's kind of a clunky wording, but I guess you could argue it's a disruption because it's not just catering to white people.
Yeah, it's not just business as usual. Yeah.
Right, which is what most businesses and what the market does. So, you know, to focus on Mexican Americans, which I would still argue, is that what it was real? Like in the real story, is that really what was happening? But in this movie, that is what's happening. So yeah, I would argue it's a disruption in that way. But yes, no, I hear what you're saying. But yeah, so to flesh out the backstory just a little bit more, we start from when Richard is a kid and he is growing up on a farm and he is living with his siblings and his abusive father. And then we see him as he's going to school and he is... What I can't even. This is terrible. What is his wife's name? Judy. It's Judy, right?
Yeah. Judy.
So his soon to be, or not soon to be, but later in life will be his wife Judy. They meet in elementary school and they become best friends because they're both made fun of for being Mexican American in a white school, and they bond. And then we fast forward again, and they're in a gang, and they're stealing and selling drugs and doing all this kind of stuff just to make ends meet. But then when Judy gets pregnant, she's like, no, we got to get out of this life. And so they do, and they end up having 2 kids, but Richard struggles to find a job. And then a friend of his who got out of the gang life is working at the Frito-Lay plant, and then he gets a job as a janitor there, and he's very much a go-getter. Has a lot of ideas, always kind of like to fix things when he was a kid. And so, yeah, so he asks a lot of questions. He becomes friends with Dennis Haysbert, who's an engineer there. And yeah, eventually he comes up with the idea, again, according to this movie, he comes up with the idea of Flaming Hot Cheetos, and he's working out a spice slurry to make on the Cheetos, and then but he pitches it to Tony Shalhoub, who is the executive of Frito-Lay. And yeah, and we go from there. So that's basically the plot. What did you guys think? Dave, why don't you start this time?
Okay. I thought this was a fairly standard and boring biopic.
All right.
That's my 1-sentence review.
Care to elaborate?
Sure. I just didn't think that this movie was doing, aside from the fact that it focuses on a Mexican-American protagonist, there is nothing compelling, original, shocking, funny. I mean, it helps that Jesse Garcia is really charismatic, but other than that, I don't really think this movie's got a whole lot going for it. You know, even Tony Shalhoub, who's like a great character actor, is in this very buttoned down role, and it's like, this is what you're using Tony Shalhoub for? This fucking wet blanket of a guy? By the way, I've never met a CEO, and I've met a few, believe it or not, who is like buttoned up like that. Not one. So maybe he's really like that. I don't know. But I just didn't. This is just kind of. It's just kind of, you know, gentlemen see. You know, it's fine. There's nothing. I feel like I've just seen. This is kind of like watching Walk Hard, except it's not a parody. I mean, I don't know. You know. And I don't really think Walk Hard's all that good either. So there's that. But I don't know. And then also knowing the whole, you know, Frito-Lay or PepsiCo or whoever is the parent company of all of this has said that this guy actually had absolutely nothing to do from inventing the flavor standpoint of bringing this product to market. And who knows whether that's true. I mean, corporations lie about shit all the time. But when, when he won't even make a statement acknowledging whether it's true or not, he says somebody's like, what's his real name? Richard
Montañez.
Thank you. He did release a statement that said, people are going to try to, take your accomplishments away from you. But he didn't deny, PepsiCo's story. So I don't know. I also think it's strange that they would go ahead and make this movie amid all this controversy, considering they knew it 2 years before they made it. So this is just weird. It's just the whole thing about it's kind of weird. I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's not great. It's kind of an important story to tell if it's true. But if it's not, what are we telling people?
Right.
So
yeah.
I mean, so reading about that, and you very well may have read the exact same things I read. They believed that there was enough of a true story here because he did work his way up from being a janitor to being
that's all true.
An executive.
Yeah.
Right.
So that part of it was true. He does say that he did come up with it. He maintains that, but that he was pushed out, which is why he didn't get credit. But as Pepsi says, the dates don't line up, and because they were already testing in the Midwest, which the film does address, but in kind of a they kind of gloss over that. So anyway,
right. They're like
so
white people in a lab, basically,
right,
in the movie.
Right.
Like, whoa, look at Whitey in the lab here, mixing formulas and chemicals together to try to make something spicy.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that is what makes your food spicy. Hate to tell you, but yeah, but no, it is a very weird backstory. I completely agree with you, Dave. Evan, what do you think about this?
I kind of feel similarly to Dave about this. I think it's a weird story to tell when it seems like so much of it has been debunked or is questionable. That said, I know, movies can take narrative license, and so they can, make something fantastic. It doesn't exactly have to hew that closely to reality. That's part of the thing with movies, is you can tell more interesting stories. You don't have to stick to the facts. But I didn't think it was that told in a very interesting way or did anything that was particularly novel other than centering on a Mexican American protagonist and really delving into Mexican American culture and slang. And there's jokes about him doing translations. I think he makes some joke of you need a Cholo translator or something like that. And so there's parts that are kind of funny, and I think there are moments that are kind of inspired directing when there's some interesting visuals going on, and there's almost a choreography to some scenes that I think is really well done. So I tip my hat to Eva Longoria about that. I think there are moments that visually are interesting and told in a fun way with editing and choreography between the characters, but other than that, I found this just kind of pat and trite and just kind of leaning into these very neat emotional moments that just did not ring true to me, particularly the way that he kind of reconciles with his father in a very neat and tidy way.
Yeah.
And there's scenes where don't get me wrong, I'm very happy to see a husband who says to his wife, you know what, without you, I'm nothing. You're my rock. You're my support. I wouldn't be here without you. I think that is just absolutely great. But it just, to me, it didn't ring true to the characters, and it just felt out of place and forced. I wanted the character to feel that way. I just didn't feel like it actually worked in the context of the scene and the story.
Yeah.
It was a detour, if that makes any kind of sense. We're taking pit stops to have these emotional moments to kind of check a box.
Yes.
Okay. He said
For
this
sure.
nice thing to his wife. Check the box. Okay. He reconciled with his father. Check a box. Not because it actually felt like we were moving in the natural course of the story in that direction, and we were having these organic, feeling emotional moments.
Totally. I completely agree with you. Yeah. I actually agree with everything you guys are saying.
Yeah.
This is a very formulaic, very standard, very, very typical biopic. And you're right, Evan. It's just it literally feels like it's going down a checklist. And yeah, I think I will say I was really excited because I'm always excited for a woman director. I'm excited that this is, even though Eva Longoria has done a lot of directing in television, including Jane the Virgin, which is a show I absolutely love and adore.
Great show.
Such a great show. I was excited that this is her directorial debut for a film. And like you guys both said, it's wonderful that we're focusing on a Mexican American family and that we're seeing so much, sadly, but it's necessary to see so much of the racism and prejudice that Richard and his family endure, just living their lives. Like they're at the grocery store and their kid puts his shoe on a car because he's trying to get like gum off, and like a guy flips out on him and screams at him, and of course it's a white guy and it's horrible, and then he uses a terrible slur. And I think those moments are important to see, and because they're sadly part of the fabric of his story. But I think I agree with you, Evan, that especially in a biopic, you don't have to be so traditional. I hate biopics for the most part because they're so formulaic and conventional. And no, you can actually do something really creative. And I feel like the film is kind of frustrating in a way because it's trying to. When we get those moments where we see the CEOs and the executives talking in slang and Mexican slang, and Richard is describing them as if they were gang members, like his gang friends and whatnot, and that's kind of interesting in a way. Theoretically it's interesting because it's taking artistic license and it's doing something stylistically different, but it's just not enough of that, and there's still something about it that kind of just feels stereotypical, and not in the way of a Mexican American is a drug dealer or a gang member, because he does address that. But it just doesn't feel like it's enough. It's not sharp enough writing. It's not pushing the boundaries enough. Also, for me, I am not I'm watching this and I'm like, wow, this is really just blowing up. This is just bowing down to the notion of the American dream and the mythos of pulling yourself up by your fucking bootstraps, and anybody can do it. And it's just, praying at the altar of capitalism. And I am so anti-capitalist, and I think the American dream is a bunch of bullshit. So for me watching this, I'm like, yeah, no, this just does not work for me, because I'm like, no, I want these people to unionize. Let's get a union together. Yeah. Let's get some more wages for all these people, And so the part of that was very, very hard to swallow for me watching, because I'm just like, that's kind of detracting from part of my enjoyment of this too. So
yeah. And they even address that with Dennis Haysbert's character about how he, teaches all these people how to run the machines, and then they get promoted and he doesn't. And
right.
The bitter pill to swallow is he finally does get put in charge. I don't know whether he's a real person or not, but his character gets put in charge of a factory, but it's a different one. He's got to move to fucking Bakersfield. Jesus Christ.
Why couldn't he be in charge of the factory that he worked at for all those years?
Man. Oh, good Lord, Bakersfield. Well,
right.
Okay. Sorry, but...
But I like that the film is trying to address those inequities. That's great, but it just, I don't know. It just ultimately ends up being
Yeah. Well, and like Evan said, everything is just kind of tied up really neatly. Everything just gets a box ticked. Because if he doesn't get the factory, then his story doesn't resolve. Or the implication is that he's just stuck in the same machinist's role for 26 years. And how depressing is that? So, the movie is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. But but back to the father reconciliation. That pissed me off. I was disgusted, and it pissed me off. And not because people can't reconcile with their shitty parents or their abusive parents. Listen, y'all want to reconcile? Do it. Fine. Go for it. But you got to earn it. And you're right, Evan. You were the one who raised that initially or raised that initially, that's redundant. Anyway, you raised that, and it's so true. This film doesn't it doesn't always earn its emotional beats, and that's unfortunate because so it ends up feeling hollow. It ends up feeling like just so. You said trite, and I think that's the perfect word.
Yeah, it's a bummer because I really was hoping for more in this movie. I came in hoping that it was going to be really fun and interesting, and that what came out was just kind of something mediocre that I wished had either been a lot better or even possibly worse, but if it was swinging for the fences.
Right. Like maybe campy or something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If a whole movie was literally just him doing, voiceover and his interpretations of events.
That could have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have been nuts and probably not worked, but at least it would have been really leaning into a particular direction.
Very true. Very true. But yeah, I just think this needed much better writing. I think for me, it almost always hinges on the writing. And that for me here is what's lacking.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately. But kudos to this film for profiling a Mexican-American protagonist and family by a Mexican-American filmmaker.
Yeah. Otherwise, By the way, I also want to throw out that I've never had Flamin' Hot Cheetos. I don't have any idea what they taste like.
Oh, they're so good.
I have never had Flaming Hot Cheetos either, and I thought I was like the only person on the planet who had it. And now I never will because they're not vegan.
Yeah. Well, the only Cheeto I've ever had is ye old regular Cheeto.
Me too. And I love it.
I do love a Cheeto, but, I don't go out of my way for them. So,
I mean, I haven't had a Cheeto in like 15 years, but I still remember how delicious they are.
They are. They're so good, Yeah. And I like spicy food, so I probably would like the Flamin' Hot,
Probably.
But Evan, you said they're delicious?
Yeah, they're really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, people love them.
I should ask Joan whether she's ever had them because she will deny this, but she used to carry around Tabasco in her purse. So,
Hot sauce, swag, just like Beyonce.
Always used to carry it, and she, like I said, she's like, no, I didn't. Yeah, she did. So,
is she from the South?
No, she's from New Hampshire.
I thought so. That's what I was going to say. Damn. I was like, I love that she's carrying hot sauce.
Yeah.
Kudos to you, Joan.
I mean, there's this, tangent, but there's this pizza that we used to order from this restaurant in New York. It was called the Diablo, and it was just like every hot thing on one pizza. It was the best fucking pizza. It's like jalapenos, but with none of the seeds removed. Oh, just so good. And other hot things too.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story for another time.
What was that, Evan?
I was going to say, I don't think I saw any characters using Tabasco in this, but they were definitely using Cholula, which is a good hot sauce.
It is a good hot sauce.
Cholula is really good. I love Cholula.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of, I remember the first time I had sriracha and I was like, this is what I have been, this is the hottest thing it's like, it's not a ghost pepper or anything, but this is uncomfortably hot sometimes. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sriracha's great.
Delicious.
It is delicious, but it's too sweet for me. Like I use different hot sauces in different things. Like sure. I like Frank's on home fries and potatoes. I like sriracha and like with noodles, not nudes.
Right. No, I get it.
No, I realize I say nudes a lot because there's a vlogger I watch who says nudes, and then I was like, I guess out of context you might not know, but no, that was silly. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, I like sriracha and nudes and curries, and I like Cholula on like everything else. So yeah.
I always throw a little sriracha on my falafel. Yum.
Ooh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, good time.
I like sriracha on a hot dog. It's like ketchup,
that
sriracha,
sounds great.
and sweet relish is actually a really good combination.
See, that sounds too sweet for me, but it sounds good.
I would throw in some raw onions on top of that too.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh
some
no,
just raw, not red onions, raw white onions.
Yeah,
red onions would be too much.
No, I don't like raw onions. But white onions are better than red onions. I don't like those fuckers. But yeah, I don't like raw onions. No,
that's okay. You don't have to like them.
I know. You can like them enough for all of us. So thanks for the approval.
Yeah.
I know. That's I know this is a whole different tangent, but like there are definitely things that onions don't belong on though, Like I wouldn't throw an onion in an omelet, I don't think.
Oh, see, I like onions in an omelet.
Well, if you're gonna cook your onion, if you're gonna saute it,
oh
sure.
yeah.
If you're gonna throw in a raw onion.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's a no go. That's a no go.
Anyway.
So I love all the spicy talk. It sounds like we're all ready for hot ones.
Yeah, I kind of feel like going and having a chili dog.
No, I meant going on the show hot ones.
Oh, the show hot ones. Yeah.
I don't think I could take it. I think I would get to the mid-level spicy, and that would be like, I like spicy things, but I feel like my spice tolerance is just, I hit probably whatever the mid-tier spicy is, and that past that becomes just too much for me.
What I love about that show is the one that Kristen Bell's on, and she is fazed by nothing. Like everything's she's like, yeah, this is fine.
That's how Padma Lakshmi was too, which I knew because she loves spicy everything. Like she's always complaining on Top Chef how things are not spicy enough. So she's like, she doesn't get phased until the final one, like the 10th or 11th or whatever it is, and then she's like, yeah, that's spicy. Like that's it. She's like, yeah, that's spicy. So now I need to see the Kristen Bell one. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, boy, this talk about Flamin' Hot has been so movie centric.
I think it's appropriate though, talking about spicy food, because I actually think it's very appropriate, even though it sounds like a complete tangent, because there is this notion, rightfully so in certain ways, that white people don't like spice or can't appreciate it. And I think that we, the three of us, when I say we, I think we may be more open-minded than some are, because I've heard many people who are like, oh no, I don't want to try that. That's weird, or that's too spicy.
Yeah,
and so
I've heard that too.
Yeah, and I like that this film is addressing that through food, because I think you can address a lot of cultural biases through food. So
yeah. Well, it's also just that, like, I don't know if I would have been into like the hot stuff when I was, younger, obviously when I was a kid, but like
that's fair.
Now, the older I get, the more I'm just like, I've had X, Y, and Z 8 million times. Throw in something that I don't know, or that's a lot hotter.
Yes.
Or, I definitely will try foods now that I'm just like, 15 years ago, I've been like, yeah, fuck that shit. But now I'm just like, yeah, no, I'll eat that weird leg of whatever. Sorry to the vegans out there. But
that's me.
Yeah.
And any other vegans out there.
And any other vegans
in solidarity.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything like off the top of my head that wasn't a meat. Sorry.
Right. But tying it back to the movie in what you were saying, Megan, about it examining cultural biases through food, I think that's one of the more effective scenes in the movie is when he's bringing the burritos to school, and then he brings an extra one to give the bully kid who doesn't want anything to do with it, and then the bully makes some other kid eat the burrito he thinks is delicious, and then Richard is selling burritos to his entire school and making a killing.
Yeah.
I thought that was actually really well done, that part.
I agree. And listen, I shat all over capitalism earlier, but listen, if we're gonna live in that kind of society, you might as well make a buck doing it. So kudos to Kid Richard for exploiting his bullies.
Yep.
Totally.
And also hopefully opening some minds through food as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the first time I had Vietnamese food, I was always afraid to try it. And then I tried it. I was like, I should have done, I've missed out. For 15 years, I have not had Vietnamese food. Yeah, I think I first had it when I was about 28. And then I was like, and for about 4 or 5 years, I ate it at least once a week. So
nice.
Yeah, it was just like
delicious.
Exactly. And so hot. So delightful.
Hot. So hot. Yes.
Yeah. Like real Vietnamese spicy food, not the stuff you get at like Saigon Grill in New York City, which is delightful too. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not the same.
I don't know anything about Saigon Grill, but yes, I know a lot of takeout places they're toning down the food for Americans.
Right.
Do we have any final thoughts on Flamin' Hot?
I think this entire 47-minute tangent that's not about Flamin' Hot speaks for itself.
I agree with you.
All right. Well, let's do a recap. So Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. It came out on March 31st in theaters, May 2nd on VOD, and now it is streaming on Paramount Plus and MGM Plus. I think it's safe to say we would all recommend it. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. And then Flamin' Hot is on Friday, June 9th on Hulu, which is today, is on Hulu and Disney Plus. What do you guys say?
I think I'm a very, very, very tepid C, but I'm almost on a pass.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm sort of a bland don't see. It's like if you're gonna see it, I don't give a shit. But I mean, you could find better things to do with your time. You know?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I'm leaning more towards Evan only because we don't have enough Latinx media. You know, again, Mexican American woman filmmaker, Mexican American family. That's great. So, yeah, I would say see it for representation reasons, but that really shouldn't be the only reason to see anything. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I have a very tepid see it, but also if you don't see it, you're not really, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for Spoiler Piece Theater. We want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you so much, Heather. We appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Another huge thank you to our amazing, talented, awesome editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you so much for making us sound great week in and week out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are all over the place. You can also follow us on social media. We're at Spoiler Piece on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, and TikTok. Come say hello. Speaking of saying hello, come say hi to us. You can email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
At 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail message, text us, let us know. Are we absolutely out of our minds and Flamin' Hot is a masterpiece and you think it's great and you think we're being too hard on it? D&D, did you love it too? Did you not? Let us know. We love to hear what you think about things. So reach out to us on social media or through our email or phone number. If you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us. That really helps us get the word out. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. And it will take you to your preferred platform of choice. You can also rate us on Apple Podcasts, which helps us out tremendously. You can also rate us on Spotify. Let's see, what else am I missing? Oh, Patreon. If you really, really like the show and you're not already a patron, and thank you so much if you already are a patron, but if you're not a patron yet, consider joining. For $5 a month, you get access to bonus episodes each week. This week, we talked about The Conjuring, and we had a great conversation as always. You also get access to vote in polls, our monthly polls, and you get access to our hundreds, like 300 bonus episodes, our entire back catalog. So it's a lot of great episodes, nice variety of films, different genres, different time periods. It's great. And I'm missing anything else? I think that's everything.
I think you got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Woohoo! Oh, our merch. And if you go to our website, spoilerpiece.com, you can also buy our merch there. We have t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, pillows, you name it. We've got it. So go check it out. My name is Megan Kearns. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica. You can follow me at Opinion S World on Twitter or at The Opinion S on Instagram and Letterboxd.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And if you'd like to follow me on the social medias, I am Dave Sees Movies on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
And my name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.